Good morning. Our call to worship is from Reverend Gretchen Haley, and if you are someone who likes to move and stretch a little bit, I invite you to do some motions with me. She writes, "Roll away the stone of your hesitant heart. Let the light shine on all the sleeping shadows. Awaken to this day that offers itself to you with all its great extravagance. Awaken to this gift, this beauty, this chance that we might still begin again and anew, that we might be changed by the in-breath and the out-breath, that we might still burst forth like crocuses, that we might still surprise the earth with a new song, sung together, calling us all in, and then sending us back out, and know it all as a blessing. Come, let us worship together."
On this Easter Sunday, we light our chalice with a spark of hope. May its bright glow bring forth more universal love into the world. Let's join together in our unison response found in your order of service. O flame of our faith, open our hearts and fill our bodies and souls with persistent strength. Enliven our spirits and engage us deeply in this life of ours, this sacred, essential moment now. Our opening hymn is number 61, found in the gray hymnal. Please rise in body or in spirit.
Our wisdom story this morning is about a young girl and her grandmother. And so this young girl and her grandmother, they were struggling in life and not feeling so good about things, having a real hard time, and they lived in a very small house in a village, might call it a hut, small enclosure. And as often happens when we are struggling in life and feeling down and feeling like things are really hard and overwhelming, their house gradually started to look a little bit messier. And as time went on and they continued to struggle and their spirits were down and they were having a hard time doing some of the basic cleaning that they would normally have done, the house really started to get kind of dirty and messy. And it was even it sort of became hard to see out the windows. As often happens when we're struggling, our exterior starts to match our interior. And so it wasn't a very pleasant place to be living. And they barely even noticed because they were struggling so much because it matched how they were feeling. And then one day, the girl was out for a walk. And on her walk, she encountered a stranger who handed her a lily. And it was a beautiful lily, much like these lilies here. And the girl took the lily and brought it back to their house and put it on the windowsill so it would get a little bit of light. And later that afternoon, the grandmother noticed the lily. And she thought to herself, it would be really so wonderful if the lily had some water. It would last longer, right? It would be nice if this beautiful thing lived a little bit longer. And so the grandmother got a jar, put the jar on the windowsill with some water, put the lily in the water, and it was really lovely. And the next day, the girl woke up and saw the sun streaming in through the window and lighting up the lily. And she thought, the window's kind of dirty. And the lily would look so much nicer if the sun was just streaming through without all the grime that's on the window. And so she moved the lily out of the way and got a rag and some water and cleaned the window so that the sun shone in fully on the lily. And when the grandmother saw that later in the day, she's like, you know what? I just remembered I have a vase, and it looks so beautiful. Wouldn't it look much nicer in a vase than in a jar? And you can sort of see how this ended up going, right? As they cleaned more and more, they noticed, right? The windows, that window looks so nice, but now the table underneath it is really dusty. It needs to be dusted, right? And then when you dust one thing, you're like, this other thing. And within about a week or two, the whole house had been transformed because they cleaned bit by bit as they began to notice the beauty that was spreading out from where the lily lived in their life. Now, these flowers are in soil, which is just fantastic, because that means they're going to live quite a while. But I think we all know what happens to a cut flower, right? Even when we take care of it and put it in water and give it sun. Does anybody know what happens to flowers after a certain point after they've been cut? They wilt. And eventually they die, right? They fall apart. Even decompose if we keep them that long. So that's what happened with this lily. Right at a certain point, the lily it wilted, and they decided it was time to throw it out. But if you walked through the village and you saw their house, because it kept spreading, right? They planted flowers out in the front yard once the lily was gone, because they wanted to have some more beautiful flowers around. If you'd walked by their house a month after this lily was there, you saw a totally different place. And if you saw the people, their spirits lifted too. Right? And the girl started to feel better, her grandmother started to feel better, and they were happier in the world, all from generating out of this one gift of kindness from a stranger, all generating from something that lived in their lives for a time on a windowsill and then passed on. And so that is the end of our story for this morning. It's a reminder that beauty and goodness and love can come into our lives, and even though it may leave, it can have a lasting impact that carries far beyond the time it is with us. Here ends our story. About 4 years ago, we were driving home from the church I was serving then in Muncie, Indiana. It was me and I think all four of my kids. And my oldest, well, I didn't have four then, so it couldn't have been four. Wow, it's like time flies, right? So it wasn't four. Maybe it was three. But anyways, I had all the kids who were alive then. And our oldest, who was 5 at the time, we were talking about the service. I asked them what they enjoyed, and she said that she enjoyed lighting a candle at the times of joys and sorrows. Well, she didn't enjoy it. She said, I was happy I was able to light a candle at joys and sorrows. And at that church, joys and sorrows was something that was both, you spoke in, you came up and shared your joy or sorrow, and then you didn't have to. You had an option to share, and then you lit a candle if you wanted. And so every Sunday I had noticed she was coming up and lighting a candle. And so I was wondering if she was having fun lighting the candle, right? And I was a little worried about her not taking it seriously enough. And so I asked, I said, so sweetie, I'm noticing you've been going up and lighting a candle each Sunday. Why are you doing that? And in my head, I was all prepared with my little mini speech, right, about why joys and serious sorrows is a serious time of sharing and not to be taken lightly. But I was ready for her response. And what she said was, I light a candle each week for my Grandpa Bob. And this was particularly flooring for me because she had never met her Grandpa Bob. Her Grandpa Bob died 15 years ago in May. And so she never met him. But she knew him through me and through me talking about him. And neither I nor my spouse had said to her anything about going and lighting a candle for him. But she saw what was happening on Sunday mornings and people sharing things that were important. And so she just started on her own to go up and light a candle for her grandpa, who she'd never met. Her Grandpa Bob lives on in Mira, my oldest, because he, of course, lives on in me. His generosity in particular lives on, his thoughtfulness, his steadfastness. He was actually my stepdad, so I only had him in my life for 10 or so years, but he had a huge impact, and I still carry a lot forward from him in my life. Enough so, apparently, that my children know enough to light a candle for him. People leave their mark on us in a variety of ways, and ways that live on in us past when they move out of our lives, whether that moving on is through death or distance. Like the lily in the wisdom story, just because the lily dies, it doesn't mean the inspiration or the love or the hope or any number of other things don't live on within us or shape us or help carry us forward, because they do. And so one of my questions for you this morning is, who has left their mark on you? Who lives on in you even though they are no longer with you? And it doesn't just have to be people who you have known in person, right? Whatever good soul or collection of people wrote things down, for example, that have meaning for you. For me, it's the Tao Te, one of my favorite texts is the Tao Te Ching. That was written thousands of years ago. And yet those folks, that person or the folks who wrote that, they have left their mark on me. The Tao Te Ching is one of my favorite sacred texts. I return regularly to it. I'm inspired by it. I may or may not have like 23 different translations of it on my bookshelf. Their words, their thoughts, they live on in me long after their folks who wrote it have passed. Now, a book or an author doesn't have to be religious in nature to leave its mark on you either. Who do you still carry with you who has left their mark in your life through their words and their writing, even though you've never met them in person? And there are so many ways, right? So many people we carry forward, so many experiences. We've talked about people we know, we've talked about books, and there is much more. Music is so incredibly meaningful for so many of us, right? We highlighted in our services on Sunday morning. People long dead inspire us on a regular basis with the power and meaning of their musical compositions. Art lifts our spirits or offers us insight into making meaning in the world, sometimes sparking joy, maybe other times helping us connect with sadness or sorrow that we already feel within ourselves. Some of this impact is fleeting, some we carry with us. The author, the composer, the painter, the sculptor, long since passed away, and yet still present in our lives. In Unitarian Universalism, we tend to focus on, sometimes over-focus on, the individual nature of our journeys. We make our own choices. We choose what we believe. And while we certainly do make our own choices, those choices are so often informed by those who have come before us. My colleague, Reverend Rob Eller Isaacs, died of cancer this year. He was a great guy. He had his flaws too, but he was a great guy. And he was fond of saying, Jesus died on the cross and rose in a people. Jesus died on the cross and rose in a people. So in this moment, right, Rob is living on in me. I believe his message to be true, and true for each of us present here in a way that you possibly might not expect. More on that in a second. When asked about Jesus, most Unitarian Universalists these days tend to say something like, he was a wonderful person who had many amazing things to teach us about how to be in the world, teachings that remain relevant today. Now, we Unitarian Universalists have evolved away from our Christian theological roots in many ways, and many of us do not spend large amounts of time with the Bible anymore. Many of us, maybe most of us, don't consider Jesus a central part of our lives, our religious or spiritual practices. If you had asked me even last week before I was writing this sermon if Jesus had left a mark on my life, I probably would have shrugged and said, I guess, because Christianity has had such a major impact on the Western world. In reality, though, my connection is much more direct than that. Yours too. Jesus has left his mark on each and every one of us here today because we literally would not be here. This church community would not exist if not for Jesus. Unitarian Universalism comes out of the Christian tradition. I am not a minister. Oh, I am a minister. Ha, that's funny. Got that one wrong. I worked hard enough for it, I should know. I am a minister. I'm not a rabbi or a imam or a monk, right? We come out of the Christian tradition. However much we have evolved away from traditional Christianity and traditional Christian theology, we are here today. We have this community of faith to rely on and to be a part of because of Jesus. I and we carry Jesus with us in this way. Think about that for a minute. You are here today in this space because of Jesus. Now, this may be an uncomfortable invitation for some of you, especially if you've come to Unitarian Universalism from a non-Christian religious tradition. I invite all of us to simply consider what it means that a wise and loving human 2,000 years ago inspired a religious tradition that continues to evolve, a religious tradition that we are a strand of. In this way, at least, even if you reject much or all of what Christianity stands for, if you are a member of this community, you still carry Jesus with you. Now, if we were a fully Christian community, I would probably be inviting you now to consider what it means to carry Jesus with you in your heart, and that might be the main message. As a Unitarian Universalist minister, I am indeed inviting you to reflect on how you carry Jesus with you. I'm also inviting you to consider how you carry Martin Luther with you, whose posting of his 95 Theses sparked the Protestant Reformation, and his questioning of church authority and practice helped pave the way for us to be here today. I'm also inviting you to consider so many others who are no longer with us, who've helped us get to the place that we are, like Emerson and Thoreau, Channing and Ballou, who are also with us in the room. Now, those are all men, and you might recognize most of or all of their names. I'm also going to invite us to consider how some women, who are probably lesser known to many of us because of sexism and patriarchy, how they might be in the room. Women like Olympia Brown, who was the first ordained woman minister in the United States as a Universalist minister and founded a bunch of churches. And Clara Barton, a Unitarian who founded the Red Cross. They're here with us in the room too. Most importantly, I'm inviting you to consider the meaning of the Easter story, of the resurrection of Jesus as a metaphor for carrying forward love, goodness, and inspiration in our lives from those who came before us, even if they are gone, just like the lily inspired the young girl and her grandmother. What and who do you carry forward, even though it or they are no longer with you, either due to death or distance? On this Easter Sunday, that is something worth reflecting on, something worth holding on to. We journey alone in so many ways, and we journey not alone in so many others. It is not just the people in our lives who walk beside us. It is also all those who came before. We are not alone. You are not alone. We may not always feel it. We may feel very disconnected at times, but love is always there, walking alongside us, even after its physical manifestation in our lives is gone. My dad, Bob, he lives on in me and in my daughter who never met him. His love, his hope, his goodness carries forth. Who lives on, who brings love and goodness and hope to you? Amen.